Welcome back to another episode on the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast. My name is Aaron Doughty. I'm excited to be here with you. This is going to be I've already recorded this episode. It's a very powerful episode. It's about 40 minutes of me going through my own feminine, masculine journey, how I'm integrating these energies, how it's helping me. Ironically enough, going into the feminine is helping me become more masculine. Understanding kind of the shadow work of my parents growing up, how that caused certain patterns in my life. Also, I go through spiral dynamics and I go through it and I share with you a model of way of understanding the world and people. It'll change your life simply knowing it. I guarantee, I really believe that. But at a certain point, once we go through a spiritual awakening, what happens is we flip not sexual polarity. We flip the energies, the masculine and feminine energies inside of us. It flips so that we can go into it to heal it and integrate it. So women many times will go into the masculine archetype called the Enemas in their body, and men will go into the Enema in their body, which is the feminine archetype, to heal it. And that's what I'm going through in my life right now is I'm healing the feminine wound that I had from growing up, from having my ex-stepmom in my life. And I'm going to share with you that process and kind of how I moved through that, what I'm realizing about myself, how I'm healing, and how that's really changed my life in a very powerful way. So it's one of the most powerful episodes I've done for understanding masculine and feminine energy. I'll have some guests coming on soon. If you didn't know, I'm in Sedona now, and one thing I'll be doing is bringing guests on. I have this cool setup now. I hope you guys like this. If you didn't know as well, just a quick little shout out. I have a second YouTube channel called the Aaron Doughty Podcast on YouTube, and it's video version of this. So if you want this with the video, you can go there. Also, let me know. I'm thinking of honestly changing the name from Expand Your Awareness 2.0 Podcast, just for branding purposes, to the Aaron Doughty Podcast. And it's just simple. It's just easy, be easy to find. Just type in my name. I think I might switch it to that. I'm going to see. You let me know. DM me on Instagram. Let me know what you think. I'm sure Expand Your Awareness 2.0 Podcast sounds cool, but I feel like Aaron Doughty Podcast just might be easier to find. I know it sounds egotistical, but I've noticed that a lot of the bigger podcasts were just people that, not just Joe Rogan or Aubrey Marcus or people like that, but it just makes it very easy, You let me know what you think of that. Also, in case you didn't know, I'm getting ready right now. I'm super hungry. It's only 8:45 in the morning, but I'm super hungry. I wonder if I underate yesterday. I'm getting ready right now to go make my favorite breakfast that I make. Sometimes I do oatmeal, but today what I do is, and I did yesterday as well, is I like to get a lot of protein in the morning. And I normally don't do that many carbs because I find that carbs, even though they're good for before I work out, carbs don't necessarily help me with mental clarity. So I normally keep my carbs kind of low. So something I do is I do this amazing chocolate ice cream. You've probably heard me talk about it in other videos, but it is absolutely delicious. It is super simple. It's super healthy. It's a healthy ice cream. All you need is either a Ninja or a Vitamix or some type of blender. And what you do is you mix that of cacao powder, 2 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, 2 tablespoons of like hemp hearts or something like that, like a tablespoon or 2 of chia seeds. Then what you get is like literally 2 or 3 big tablespoons of peanut butter. And then what you do is you get a whole bunch of ice and you mix that with Organifi chocolate protein. It makes a chocolate ice cream that is amazingly delicious. It digests very well because Organifi, the protein powder, it has digestive enzymes inside of it and a whole bunch of nutrients, and it's a complete vegan protein. So it's completely vegan. It's organic. It's very high quality protein as well. They're tested organic before it's made and after it's made. So it's just super high vibe. I'm a big fan of Organifi, and it's the main part that makes it taste amazing. I really believe it. Even says it on the thing. It's the best tasting vegan complete protein, and it really is. It's the best. Before last night when I was getting ready for bed, I was like, I need some more protein, so I just mixed it with some almond milk, and it was delicious. I was like, man, this is really good. So that I eat every single morning. It's about 40, if you do 1 or 2 scoops of Organifi, it's like 40 grams of protein plus the peanut butter and everything else. It is delicious. If you go to Organifi, ORGANIFI.com/Aaron, AARON, you go to that page, get the chocolate vegan protein, and you use my code that you'll see at the top of that page. You're going to get 15% off. And it's like one of my favorite things. I use it 2 or 3 times a day. It's high vibrational. I'm very much about high vibrational organic supplements. It digests super well because it's vegan and it's a complete protein. I've been gaining weight recently and focus on bulking. That's one thing that's really been helping me to do it. So one more time, if you want 15% off, go to Organifi.com/Aaron, Organifi.com/AARON. Get 15% off. And let me know what you think. Also, maybe make the ice cream on Instagram and tag me or something. I would repost if you do it. So, other than that, as always, let's get into this episode right meow. Welcome back to another episode on the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast. My name is Aaron Doughty, and we're at it again with another podcast that this time, I think I already had one that was in the new house in Sedona. This might be the second one. No, I've had a couple actually, because I've had Lior came on one a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if that episode's live yet, but this week, I'm back in Sedona. I originally, many of you know, just to kind of give you a little bit of a context, I moved to Sedona recently, and I'm here and in Vegas, splitting up my time. However, funny enough, I'd find myself just more and more in Sedona. I went back to Vegas for like 5 days last week. Or two weeks ago. Time goes by so fast. And while I was there, I was like, wow, man, I want to get back to the creek. I want to get back to Sedona. So I was only there for a couple days. Then I came back, and I'll probably go to Las Vegas here in like a week or two for a couple days. But synchronistically, it's also showing me I'm having certain things come up to where I can let go of going back to Vegas so much. So it's kind of interesting how when you come to Sedona, the energy here is very powerful, and things tend to manifest quickly. And it also tends to bring up a lot of stuff. So one of the reasons I'm doing this episode, because by the title you can see, this episode is on why your feminine and masculine energy and polarity swaps after enduring a spiritual awakening. And it's also going to be about how to go through a healing process of understanding how you can heal both the masculine and the feminine energies inside of you, and how to integrate them versus repress them. Because I would say that out of everything in 2020 that I've been focused on as far as theme goes, the most powerful theme of 2020 for me has been understanding masculine and feminine polarity, understanding integration for that as well. And in this episode, what I want to do is kind of share with you my journey of how I'm going through this process and how I think about it as well. You know, it makes a lot of sense now. I think that you see a lot of men who go through a spiritual awakening start to polarize and start to go more into their feminine. And then it's almost like you can think there's something wrong there. And on the other side of that, you get men and women that go through a spiritual awakening, and they may go more into their masculine, and they may also think there's something wrong there. But also understanding that when it comes to attracting love in your life, or it comes to you just becoming a whole integrated person, there's a process to it that means you must go into the different wounds you have. Now, think about it like this. Our parents were the modelers of masculine and feminine energy, or the lack thereof it. So we are constantly determining meaning in our life. And at a certain point in our past, we may have had one of our parents, they may have treated us a certain way, and that may have caused us to view the feminine and the masculine in a certain way, and caused us to wire it in that that's just the way things are. And I look to my own, and I'll be sharing my own story in this as well, so that you can I give you like a firsthand basis of how I'm moving through this, and how you can go through and heal your feminine and masculine energy. And I'm still working through it, to be honest. I don't have it completely figured out. This is something that for me has been very powerful to move through. It's allowed me, I think my energy's changed quite a bit. You let me know. Maybe you've been watching my videos for a while, but when you're in it, you don't necessarily see it as much. But I've been this last year and a half, I feel like my energy has changed a lot, and I'm becoming more grounded in many ways, and also I'm becoming more integrated. At least I think so. And there's still aspects that I'm working on though, when it comes to understanding my own energies inside myself, how I relate to other people, how I relate to women. It's all something I'm learning as I go. So I'm not an expert at this. There's some people that I believe are experts. I'm just more so want to explain to you kind of what I'm learning, how I'm going through this process. And what I'm doing. But before I share my story with it, what I want to do is give a basis of understanding this in general when it comes to, I'm going to explain it using spiral dynamics. So many of you may have heard me talk about spiral dynamics before, which is a process. It's not a process. Spiral dynamics is a model for understanding different levels of consciousness. And there's one book that I'm reading right now called Integral Relationships, and it uses spiral dynamics to understand relationships. And one thing that's important in relationships is, this is what it says, is it talks about how you want to be in a relationship with someone that's at the same level of consciousness or close to it, because if there's too much of a gap, it's almost like there's just a complete imbalance and there's not as much glue there to necessarily hold it together. But what I want to do is kind of share with you a little bit about how we move through this process and how I'm going to give a very short explanation of spiral dynamics, just so this episode isn't crazy long. I have other podcast episodes on that of spiral dynamics, and I share how we move through spiral dynamics. There's an episode on how to practically move through and raise your level of vibration through spiral dynamics. But it's a model for understanding reality and the way people think and people's value systems. And what you'll find is that as you move through life, you may move through these different colors at different stages of your life. And as you go through, it explains a lot. It explains why certain things happen, why you go through certain epiphanies. And just to give it a very short explanation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a little bit of the colors right now and share some of those with you. So spiral dynamics, there is, I'm going to be explaining purple, red, blue, orange, green, and yellow. Now it goes from purple, red, blue, orange, green, yellow to turquoise. And these are all different levels of consciousness. We move through these in different stages of our life, but also some people may stay at certain levels for a certain period of time. So let me just kind of shortly explain this, and then I'll explain why the feminine and the masculine energies swap and exactly what we can do in order to balance out the feminine and masculine energy in us. And I'll share with you my story and my journey of masculine and feminine energy, and kind of what you can know and expect going forward, maybe in your life in some ways, as you move through these different processes. So first off, we have that of, there's actually beige. So it starts at beige. Beige is like when you're a baby, you're in complete survival mode. You're completely instinctive. You are relying on someone else. Now, what you'll notice is that what happens is each level, as I go up in these different levels of consciousness, they're going to isolate back and forth between individual focus and then collective focus, or also masculine energy to feminine energy. So it's going to go back and forth between those two ideas. So beige is more of the, I guess you could say, the masculine and individual instinctive baby level of consciousness. We're all in beige when we are born. And then what happens is eventually we have the collective, and then you'll notice these levels of consciousness in both society and individual, like family units and stuff like that. You'll see this in almost everything. Once you learn spiral dynamics, you look at the world in a completely new way. At least that's what I found in my own life. Now, purple is the next level up. Now, normally I know you think purple. You think that should have been the crown chakra. It's a little bit different colors than just the chakra system that we're used to. So purple is collective. Remember, because it isolates back and forth. Purple is collective. This is about tribes, groups. This is when a lot of, it's about sticking together, and it's about kind of fitting in a way. And a lot of times this is in collective society. This is where there'd be certain tribes that maybe believe in certain spirit beings and different gods. And having that kind of relationship, that's considered very purple, very tribal. Now, us as a society, we moved past that a while ago, but there are still different levels of consciousness all over the planet. Well, there will be collective societies that are like that. If you look in certain third world countries, there may be society, like literally groups of people that are beige, that are still in the baby consciousness of instinctive and relying on someone else. So same with purple. You'll get tribes around the world. Nothing wrong with them. And it's like these things aren't good or bad. These are just different levels, different ways of understanding different value systems. Remember that too. Now, at a certain point, there's limitations of each system that then causes people to move up. Now, After purple, we then move into red. Now, imagine you're in a tribe, and then what you eventually realize is, okay, we're all doing the same thing. We all have our different purpose and our different place, but now I want to have power. So what happens is then I want to have power. I realize we can make quicker decisions if somebody is leading versus having the tribe as a whole unit. So then remember, it goes from collective in purple to an individual masculine focus of red. Red is all about control, high competition, power. Red is where somebody wants to be the leader. And it can be both, I think, there's positive versions of it, I'm sure, but a lot of times there's a lot of limitations of it. When you look at this, we have red in society today. Narcissists normally will operate in a red level of consciousness because it's all about me. It's all about power, gaslighting. You get that of crime. A lot of crime is in red. Being a dictator, someone like Hitler was very red. So it was, this is a certain level of consciousness that definitely still exists on society in some levels. But now as I move up to these next levels, you're going to see how these relate to you a little bit more than red, purple, or beige. Now think of it as well. Purple would be like when in your life, purple of tribes, that would be like you moving into your teenage years. You'd be the baby in the instinctive level, then you become like a kid, and then eventually a teenager. You want to fit in with your tribe, and that's like when you move into that level. And then eventually you may want to start leading and start having like your individuality is also could be you moving more into like a red level, wanting to break out and be a rebel. That can be like fitting in with friends is purple. Red would be like the rebel. Now blue is, once again, when we go back to collective, because red was individual, blue is all about conformity, religion, rules, regulation. When you're in red, and the limitation of having somebody that controls everything is eventually things aren't fair. It'd be like Hitler or something. It would be like, this is wrong, this doesn't work. And then blue is like people then feel more safe. So in purple, down a little bit, then tribes, some people may not feel safe because they have this tribal aspect, but having a leader would help you maybe feel a little more secure. So they may look up to red. Now red, then you'd realize there'd be some people that wouldn't like what red was doing, the leader, and they say, you know what, this isn't fair. We're going to make a democracy. We're going to have these rules, these regulations that don't allow you to abuse your power. We're going to have a collective connection here. And that's when we bring in conformity, religion, rules, and regulation. That's in blue. Blue is all about safety. It's all about feeling secure. It's about coming together. It's also a lot of social conditioning in blue. You see a lot of people in blue that are like going to their 9-to-5 jobs, they're watching the news, they're believing everything they're told. And they look to the authority for certainty. That's a very blue type mentality. Now, in my life, I was blue for a period of my life. I was blue growing up. My dad is very blue. Remember, there's no bad or good about these. These are just different levels. And then eventually you get to orange. Orange is achievement, success, business. It is hustling, hard work, marketing, science, technology. Now, a lot of times when people may become atheists, it's normally them going from blue to orange. And blue, it's all about religion and rules, but eventually you start to question the rules. You start to question your religion. You may not believe in it. And then you may become a lot of times people become atheists because orange is very science-y. It's very much about technology. It's very much about hustling. I remember when I started questioning religion, I became atheist for a short period of time before I became more spiritual. And it was just because I didn't believe in a lot of the way I was interpreting some of religion was like, just did not resonate with me. And it caused me to kind of go, I went through that process myself. Now, blue to orange was when I was like I always worked a 9-to-5 job that I could have commission so I could kind of make the money I wanted. But the side effect of that was I was still kind of in blue and orange doing what I was told. Orange, I would say, is also when I went like head first into doing what I love, doing my passion, making videos. I started developing willpower. I started hustling. I started becoming good at making money. These are things that really changed my life in a powerful way. And for a good period of my life, even the first 2 or 3 years of my YouTube channel, I was very much in orange. It's when a lot of people are in law of attraction. A lot of you listening to this right now are a mix of, we have gravities in different of these colors. And we have a little bit of these activated of many of these. So I have a lot of my energy in orange and a lot of my energy in green, which is the next level I'll be talking about, and a lot of my energy in yellow. And many of you will have the same. So green is, once again, the limitations of orange is, okay, we've built a business, we've done all this stuff, but I realize I haven't spent a lot of time with my family, or I haven't like done good in the world, or necessarily like a lot of this progressive science technology stuff has actually caused there to be more pain, or like pain in the world, and we're destroying the planet. That's when a lot of people really, like especially wealthy people, become philanthropists and just want to add value and help everybody. So in green, it's back again to collective, because individual is orange, capitalism. Green is relationship, community, caring for the animals, loving animals, going for the underdog, adding value. These are different levels, and a lot of people listening to this right now will be in a green level of consciousness. Now, a spiritual awakening will normally happen between orange and green. Now we're getting to the part where I talk about the sexual polarity and the masculine and the feminine here in a minute, but the spiritual awakening will normally happen after you've maybe had a lot of success and you don't feel as happy as you thought you could or would. And then what you do is you start to associate happiness with giving, with a spiritual dimension of life. You start to focus on contribution and growth. So you become sometimes atheist when you go from blue to orange, because you start to question your religion, and then you also at the same time start to look into science. But then from orange to green is normally a spiritual awakening, where you realize that you're a spiritual being having a temporary human experience, and you then focus on unity and one consciousness. Now, before I get into the anima and the animus, which I'll talk to you in about a minute, which is Carl Jungian psychology, yellow is another level as well that you will have activated in you. Yellow is what I'm talking about right now. It's systems thinking. Yellow is applying the knowledge and change. It's understanding different perspectives. All truths are true, and accepting people for their truths. In green, it's all about many times being vegan, having a certain belief system, wanting to bring community together. But the drawbacks of green is normally green will shame people that don't think the same way. Like, oh, you and orange are harming the planet and doing this and doing that. And even though you can have that perspective in green and yellow, because it's in some levels true, maybe that's just the green in me talking. But in yellow, you start to realize, okay, I understand this, but what can I actually do? What system can I set up? What can I help people understand that will change this in the world? Green, it's more about voicing the problem and talking about it. And in yellow, it's about actually practically solving it and doing something about it. And also accepting and letting other people believe what they believe. So in yellow, that's the systems thinking. It's also the more we go back to the individual, the more masculine in yellow. And that's when you become more integrated as well, which is something I'm focusing on with my own sexual polarity and masculine and feminine energies, is moving more into yellow versus being in the wounded masculine or feminine, which I'll talk about now. So I gave you that basis. We've got purple of the tribes and the groups. We got red of control, high competition and power. We got blue of conformity and safety and regulation and rules. Orange of business, success, hard work, science, technology. Green of relationship, community, caring for the animals, the environment. It's where spiritual awakening normally happens. Like a psychedelics are in green. And then yellow is where you learn practically what to do and you understand and accept all the other levels. Now, for who they are and how they think. Now, what Carl Jung talks about is that, in a way, this is my own paraphrase or understanding of it, when we move from that of orange into green, the success, achievement, hardworking, hustling, we go basically when we go to through a spiritual awakening, men and women will flip their sexual polarities. Not sexual polarity, that's a wrong way of saying it. But they will go into their, if you're a man, you'll go more into your feminine and start to accept that. Whereas before that, it's normally repressed. It's like, no, I'm a man. This is who I am. On the other side of that, women are like, oh, I've been put in this place for so long and people think I'm supposed to be here, but I'm going to go into my masculine. So men then go into their feminine and women then go into their masculine. So it's a common thing that happens. And what Carl Jung talks about in this, and in that book, Integral Relationships, I'm talking about as well, what it talks about is we are then going into our anima and our animus. Now, men have what is called an anima inside of them, which is the female archetype. And women have what is called the animus inside of them, which is the male archetype. It's like the male energy. And when we go through the spiritual awakening, one of the things that we do is we flip so that we can go into it, so that we can heal it, so that we can go into the wound. And I'll share with you my story of this and how I've been going through this. But that's a lot of times what happens. So you'll notice that there's a lot of spiritual men that are very feminine, and there's a lot of spiritual women that are very masculine, or not very, but they just start to go into that more. Now, the main thing I want to say with this is don't be ashamed if you're going through this process. Don't think there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. But the thing I encourage you to do is to go into it, to lean into it, and to work on that healing, to work on that integration, and to understand what is happening here as well. So in my life, what I've been going through over this last year especially is understanding my own masculine and feminine energy. And I looked to some of my past, I looked to some of the way I grew up and the role models that I had for that of both masculine and feminine energy. Now, on one side, you may know my story, but I had, just to give you a little bit of context in case you haven't seen, my videos and stuff like that, I went through from 7 to 16 years old. I had an abusive ex-stepmom. I had a stepmom in my life, and she's no longer in my life, thank goodness. But from that period of time, I had no freedom. My brother and I had complete control over us. We weren't allowed to really go to school. We had to earn going to school activities and stuff. School was our outlet because when we were at home, we were pretty much locked outside working. We had to sneak food a lot of times because we were only given a bowl of cereal in the morning, TV dinner at night. We weren't allowed to watch TV. We'd have to sneak watching TV and break into the house if we did want to watch it. We'd have one of us on the lookout, and one of us would have like the remote, and we'd have the remote with a finger on the previous channel so that we could put it back to the previous channel and then dip out of the house really quick if we wanted to watch TV. So, just to kind of paint a picture there, my brother and I didn't have much freedom at all. And my dad's a firefighter, and he was kind of he met my ex-stepmom. My parents were divorced. Very quickly, my ex-stepmom brainwashed my brother and I not to want to go see our real mom. And if we did go see our real mom, we'd come back and we'd get punished really badly. So we'd eventually decide, we don't want to go see our real mom. Luckily, after my dad divorced her, my mom, we have a great relationship with our mom now. She's amazing. But we didn't have it from 7 to 15, 16 years old for me. My brother's 3 years younger than me. And having that kind of the feminine energy in my life for a good period of time was somebody that was very controlling, somebody that was very manipulative, and somebody that didn't allow me to be the way I preferred to be. And I kind of felt like I was in a little box, or a lot like I was in a little box. But the feminine energy in my life was very masculine. Think about it. My ex-stepmom was very masculine, very angry, very, very demanding, very manipulative. So that, I think, in many ways caused me to become kind of like a people pleaser, because I was seeking, in order to get love, I'd be seeking acting in line so that I could receive some type of love, whatever version that would be, whether it's allowed to go to school or like school activities or something like that. But in many ways, that was kind of like something that had an effect on me. And then also my dad allowing my ex-stepmom to be that. And I'll tell you a big epiphany I've had with my dad as well. And I love my dad. My dad's amazing. He's like super nice guy. But the thing I've learned from him is how to not actually be a nice guy, because being a nice guy doesn't get you very far when you're being a nice guy for certain purposes. And a lot of times nice guys, they don't know it, but they're being nice because then they want approval. They want validation rather than being authentically themselves, even if they're being polarizing. So I've actually, in many ways in my life, rebelled against that. I think that's one of the reasons I am where I am, because my dad wanted me to go to school, get a degree, and I said, no, I want to own my business and do this way. So I had to be very assertive in that way, and that kind of taught me that. But the masculine presence in my life was allowing the feminine to run the show. And my dad is very masculine in his business, but not necessarily in his personal life. He takes his job very seriously. He's a fire investigator, very good at what he does. But on the other side of that, I would say that in relationships, he was allowing the woman to lead in a way, allowing my ex-stepmom to run the show. And that was the role model for masculine I had and the role model for feminine I had. So what that kind of caused within me, though, is a couple different things that I'm working through now. One of them is that developed a feminine wound, because the way that I related to feminine energy was, first off, I didn't really have feminine energy in my life. I've realized that a lot of times I attract women into my life that aren't necessarily the most nurturing. And the reason that is, I think, is because I didn't receive that nurturing growing up. So I'm not, maybe it's like a part of me wasn't attracted to it. And I realized that's actually what I want. I want somebody that's very nurturing. I want somebody that like in my life that's something that I think I crave because I didn't receive it growing up because I was so much controlled, that it's an energy in me that I crave in many ways. But one of the reasons I also wasn't attracting it is because it wasn't activated within me at all. I wasn't nurturing myself. So this is some of the epiphany stuff I'll be talking about later. And me talking this out can maybe help you see different aspects of yourself and how that may have affected you in some ways. But first off, I didn't have the masculine energy there of the masculine presence to show me what it's like to be masculine, to be directional. And think of masculine energy. We all have masculine and feminine energies inside of us. Masculine energy is very directional. It's very purposeful. It plans. It can be assertive. It can lead. It is that's like masculine energy. Feminine energy is very intuitive. It's creation. It's creative. It's in the feelings. Feminine energy wants to feel safe. And what I've noticed in my own life, especially when that comes to the feminine wound that I have, is I realize I have a feminine wound. The feminine wound is that the way I relate to feminine energy is I kind of, in some ways, I had such a masculine energy of that in my life that I kind of repel the nurturing aspect within myself. And originally this year, what I've been going through is this balance of these two masculine and feminine polarities, because I've realized that I need to kind of heal and integrate these energies inside of me. And just recently, you may have noticed earlier, I had a much longer beard, went through a phase. And I think that phase was me subconsciously trying to go more into my masculine. It was me intending to go into it so that I could heal, because I was realizing that I want more, sexual polarity in relationships in life, because polarity is kind of what attracts us together. So the problem with being in green when you switch anima to animus is until you move into yellow, when you know how to use both of those energies, which is kind of what I'm talking about in this episode, you'll find that if you go into your feminine, what I was doing is I was going into my feminine as I was more in green, and I was rejecting it. I was repressing it. I was like, no, I don't want to go to my feminine. I'm going to grow out this beard. And I'm going to be masculine. This is how I really prefer to be. But what I realized is that by doing that, I'm kind of repressing that feminine wound from my ex-stepmom. And here's the funny thing too. You probably know this if you've heard my stories before about this, but after my dad divorced my ex-stepmom when I was 16, 17 years old, the first girlfriend I attracted in my life was very negative and always trying to control me. She was in my life for 4 or 5 years. It was in my life way too long as a relationship. It's funny. I noticed that my dad, he kind of would be in relationships way longer than he needed to be. When he knew it probably wouldn't work out and it was unhealthy, he would stay in them. And for the first couple relationships I was in, I'd let them drag on. I had a 4 or 5 year relationship with someone that was very negative, always very critical of me, didn't like how loud I was. I was coming out of my shell then, because I then was coming out of that divorce thing with my dad and my ex-stepmom. So I was also not allowed to have friends, and I was really coming out of my shell, and she didn't like that. She didn't like how outgoing I was. And I was always kind of in trouble for things, just like I was in trouble with my ex-stepmom. After I broke up with her, finally, I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I then got transferred to a better shoe department with a manager that was the same personality as my ex-stepmom. So because that left my life, then someone else came into my life. And this person was reflecting back to me that control as well. She was in my life for 2 or 3 years until we finally got her fired, which was very hard to do because there's corporate politics involved with there was corporate politics. There you go, I'm moving the mic a little bit. There were corporate politics involved with working at Nordstrom's. So even though she was talking down to people, making people cry, doing things that should not be allowed, she worked there and she was protected by upper management. And there was always someone in my life to represent that energy of my ex-stepmom until I integrated the energy and I went in and I healed it and I forgave her. Honestly, that's what it was, is I forgave her, because I realized that my ex-stepmom, even though she was narcissistic and very abusive, she was acting out something. She was she was acting out the masculine wound that I think her dad gave her, because I think that's why she was the way she was. It was out of survival for her to control other people and abuse them. And I think her dad treated her that way. So I was able to forgive her because I was able to see kind of the pattern falling off the apple, not falling far from the tree type thing. And that masculine energy that was in my life that was very controlling, that then caused a feminine wound within me in a way. And here's something I realized as well about my dad. So my dad's dad, he never really got to know very well. He knew he had him in his life, but I think he let him down a lot. I never met him. He died, I think, before I was born. But I know I think he was like, he drank a lot of alcohol, and he wasn't really there for my dad very much. So I think my dad craved that masculine energy, but he had his mom, my grandma, who's awesome, but my grandma who took on the role of both the masculine and the feminine. I think my dad craved that. My dad never had someone to teach him masculine energy growing up. And it's funny, my dad, I think, craved. My dad's dad never bought him gifts. So I think what happened is when you don't get something growing up and you wanted it, you craved it, you give it to your kids or to someone else. So my dad used to buy his gifts growing up, like little action figures and stuff. And I think one of the reasons is because that's what he craved growing up. And I think because I craved maybe more support for me just to be myself and eventually my dad came around to this, but for a long time, I think he really wanted me to go to school, go to become a lawyer or something like that. And I kind of rebelled and I wanted to own my own business and stuff. And I think that because maybe I didn't receive that in some ways growing up, one way I'll treat my kids one day is like, I'll just, whatever they're passionate about, I'll just really support it, even if it's something I don't, even if I want them to be a speaker or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that'd be my version of it, of the way my dad was like, be a lawyer or be a firefighter or something like that. Like I would, even if they wanted to do something else, not be on YouTube or whatever version of YouTube's in the future or whatever. That's just kind of like the way that kind of trickles down and it causes different energies. But anyways, that's kind of a tangent, to be honest with you. But I realized that about my dad last night when I was writing some of this out for this podcast episode today. But so the feminine wound that I have, that I realize has kind of caused me to become a people pleaser in some way. A lot of times people pleasers are also come from parent pleasing growing up, trying to please a parent who's very strict. And then that causes a pattern until you become aware of it. Now, with everything I'm sharing today, awareness is the key. Once you become aware, you begin to come free. Before you're aware, it's just this pattern that's running you. So for me, growing up, my beard recently, which I recently shaved quite a bit, it was me trying to go more into my masculine and kind of repressing that feminine energy, not wanting to really go into it, thinking that'd be bad if I went into it because I would like stop sexual polarity, which attracts people, attracts women in my life. I'm like, oh, I don't want to like kill that polarity and stuff. That was like the idea, right? But what I've realized is that feminine wound that I have that kind of came from experiences from my ex-stepmom, that feminine wound is something I actually need to go into, which means I actually need to go into my feminine. One of the reasons I haven't attracted the most nurturing partners, like women in my life. Nurturing, I mean somebody that like really nurtures me, makes sure, nurturing, like taking care of in a way of, just the idea of nurturing. I'm trying to think of other analogies of that. It doesn't necessarily just mean cooking for someone but someone is very compassionate or passionate in that way. And I think that the key is for me to go into the feminine and do more feminine activities, which are more yin activities. Here in Sedona, I go to the creek almost every day. Go do art, play music, do things that are more for the purpose of being kind of like present to the moment. But here's what I've realized about going into that feminine energy. As I go into that feminine energy and I integrate it within myself and I give myself the love that I seek, the nurturing that I seek, and I take care of myself, where normally I used to make, 7 videos a week on YouTube. Very busy. Now I do way less. I'm going into more yin area of my life for now so that I can heal this feminine wound and relax a little bit more, enjoy life a little bit more. And as I go into it and I do more creative things that don't have much of a purposeful, like the masculine in me. And what I've realized is I have naturally masculine energy, especially when it comes to my business and the way that I am. But just like my dad, he like delineated and separated his business life from his personal life. I'm mixing both. So I'm learning but like I said with the beard, you think, oh, I've grown out a beard and being this way is how I embody the masculine. No, the key for me is to actually go into my feminine and to heal it and to give myself the emotions I craved growing up, to nurture myself. My buddy Drew here, he was talking about how he like gives himself an oil massages his arms and stuff every now and then because it's a way of self-loving and kind of giving himself that energy. So the energy that you want and you crave, you can give to yourself. And by giving it to yourself, what you end up doing is you end up like integrating this energy. And then because it's activated in you, you're more likely to actually attract it into your life as well. So that's what I've been doing recently, is I've been leaning more into the feminine energy, and I've been going in and working on the shadow. The shadow is the unconscious part of us that a lot of us aren't aware of. But when you become aware of it, that's where the power is. So I'm becoming aware of this feminine wound that I have that kind of turned me into a people pleaser. And I'm also realizing, what are my stories about women? What are my stories about feminine energy? Because it used to be that they're trying to control me and I need to rebel. I'm afraid of commitment or freedom. Or not freedom, I'm afraid of commitment and I want freedom. I seek freedom. But what I'm realizing is how to work with this energy and be okay with it and become aware of my stories, even about the masculine. And realizing that, like, the way that I am becoming more masculine by going into my feminine. And that's a funny thing to say. It's such a paradox. But by going into that feminine, I'm learning how to listen more, which is more of actually a masculine trait. A lot of times when feminine are working through things, they may want to vent or they may want to talk to the masculine. And what happens is, a lot of times, sometimes the masculine tries to fix things, right? Trying to fix. That actually doesn't help. What helps is actually to listen, to be present, to be grounded. And it's a funny thing, because the more I've gone in and accepted and healed that feminine part of myself, the more grounded, the more of a listener I've become, the more I'm able to say less rather than talk so much. I mean, it's what I do for a living, but it's a funny thing. But I think the key, you listening to this episode, don't repress these energies. Don't think they're wrong. Go and lean into the shadow. Become aware of your stories about the masculine, the stories about the feminine. Those stories are just beliefs. See when the meaning came from the past. And then start to heal and go in and you know, if you're a female, you go more into yang activities. Could be you going for a bike ride, going for a run, working out, working on your business, getting cool ideas, working on a project, being very directional, you know, lean into that. If that's the key, you know, see this Enemas is about us healing it, and then being able to move more into yellow. And in yellow, you can activate these energies when you need it, for sexual polarity, for just understanding that the energy dynamic there, because sexual polarity, I think, is still very important no matter what stage you're at. And that for the masculine, that normally means leading, being directional, because then that helps the feminine feel safe. And for a woman to really be in her feminine, she needs to feel safe. So it's important to look at these energies within us. But the thing that I've been doing is just looking at that shadow, looking at that story, becoming aware of the shadow work of it. Forgiveness as well, forgiving my ex-stepmom, forgiving my dad, because he didn't necessarily know. He wasn't taught how to be masculine growing up because his dad wasn't really around. And then seeing how I can integrate this energy inside of myself and then embody it in the most authentic way. What I realized too is the most attractive thing is authenticity, rather than trying to repress one side or the other, rejecting it. So for this episode, what I recommend you do is you lean into it. If you need to do more yin activities, yin is like art, going to nature, walking on grass, playing with your dog or cat, very healing, taking a bath, very yin. Yang is directional, is going to the gym, working out, doing projects, the physical activity, fixing things in the house, whatever. That's more yang energy. Play around with these energies. See how you can heal. Become aware of how you feel how you view the feminine and masculine. And that's why I wanted to share with you some of my story here, because I think that you're able to see that by me sharing the story, you're able to see maybe how the shadow work in your own life and what you can do to heal it, and how you can actually lean into it and accept it and give yourself the emotions you crave. And as you give it to you start to realize that you're whole. You're integrated. And as you're integrated, you'll attract someone else who's also integrated. So let me know what you thought of this episode. If you want me to do more like this on sexual polarity, masculine, feminine energy, I have some cool people coming on the podcast soon that will be talking about stuff like this. So I'm excited for that too. Other than that, if you haven't already, could you share this on Instagram? You share it on Instagram stories. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and I'll be resharing those. And then also, if you could review the podcast on iTunes, it would mean the world to me. If you don't have iTunes, find a friend that has iTunes and just review it and write something nice if you like the podcast. It helps me know to do more. I'm really putting a lot of energy into the podcast because I believe and the audio experience. I hope you love it. I also have a second YouTube channel where the videos are of this. If you didn't know about it, it's Aaron Doughty Podcast, I think is the name of it. I'm considering, by the way, changing the name from the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast to the Aaron Doughty Podcast, because it's just the branding wise of it, it's just a little bit easier. You let me know what you think of that. Aaron Doughty Podcast or the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast. It's fun for me to say, but it's just a habitual pattern. I've been saying it in the beginning of the podcast. I could easily say the Aaron Doughty Podcast and make it cool and fun too. You let me know what you think of that. I'd be interested. DM me. Let me know on Instagram. Other than that, I love you. I appreciate you being here. And as always, talk to you in the next episode. Peace, much love, and namaste.